Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Welcome back to the Locker Room Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Javinsky. We got Ryan Rodriguez, and today's another great day because we have another great guest for you guys. So let's just introduce him straight away. He's a prep grad and the host of the Ridin podcast, which has over 130 episodes, which is a lot more than what we have. It's almost double. Please welcome Jack Ridenour. Let's go.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me. It's always great to sit down with some fellow little Hoyas. You guys soon to be actual Hoyas because you'll be graduating. So really glad to be sitting down, chit-chatting, and yeah, I'm pumped to be here. I know that you're not at 130, but you're going to get there. You keep going, and before you know it, I mean, you're like at episode 200. You're like, where did the last 2 years go of my life? So it's a great time.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you again for being on this podcast, and then we're just going to jump straight into it. So first off, what made you want to get into the podcasting world in the first place?
So I went to school for journalism. I've always wanted to be in sports broadcasting. So I also do play-by-play announcing and then also public address announcing. So always wanted to be behind a microphone for whatever reason. A lot of people are not a fan of that, not a fan of the public school or the public speaking and whatnot. But I have always enjoyed it. I've always found entertaining a lot of fun. And when COVID hit, I had been play-by-play announcing and PA announcing at the local university over here in Pittsburgh that I announced at, and also at a high school. But season ended, obviously. I mean, as you guys probably know, life ceased to exist, or ceased all that one day when COVID kind of came crashing down. And I said, well, I'm probably going to feel bad for myself for about 2 weeks. And then I got really antsy, and I said, well, what can I do here? And I decided to make a podcast, and Ridin the Pine was born. And now I have a monster on my hands that I can't control, but that's okay. It's a good monster.
Mm-hmm. Ridin the Pine. I want to ask you this too. What do you think is like your favorite part about like being on a podcast?
My favorite, I think it's, well, if I'm being serious and being funny, if I'm being funny, I love it because then I don't have my friends arguing with me. So that's really nice. I get to say what I would like to say without being interrupted. I have friends that are, we go back and forth on the sports talk, but I think just in terms of being able to share my opinion on sports, always being able to share what I know and just what other kind of aspects of sports that I like to discuss. I've always felt that, sports in general, sports talk at least, it's very cut and dry at times, and it can get a little bit boring. So I've always tried to find things that are interesting. I like to talk about sports logos. I like to talk about different ballparks and arenas that you can go to. So the stuff that's not really talked about, the rocks that have not been overturned and whatnot. But I think I just love talking about sports. I love talking. I love sports. And I said, all right, well, if I can figure out a way to do that both, I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what, I want to try and do and keep doing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'd say definitely for me, definitely my favorite part of like being on podcasts too is that we get like these great guests that like I would never even thinking about talking to, especially through the GP Connect that we got. But like, just like talking through these guys, maybe like picking their brains. I feel like it's just such a nice part about being on a podcast. But like, I remember like Colin, I feel like we kind of like went from being like a sports podcast to like kind of like.
Yeah, we started out just doing like, we did rarely any guests. No like guests like what we're doing now, where we're just asking people questions and stuff like that. We started out for like, we've done 74 episodes. I would say maybe 15 through 40 were all just like us talking about what's going on in the sports world for like the same reason that you got started. So I was also wondering, you said you've always kind of wanted to get into it. Is there a time when you knew that you wanted to do that, or have you kind of just always wanted to do that?
I mean, since I was a kid, I've always had people just come up to me and say, hey, you know a lot about sports. You have like a nice voice. You sound good over a microphone. So when I'm being told that at 8 years old, I'm like, this is my ticket to not being a lawyer, a doctor, a finance guy, a scientist. I'm like, sweet, I can talk about sports and I can like have a career off this. Awesome. I mean, that's not why I obviously got into it, right? I mean, you don't want to get into this business because of the money, because there's going to be long days where you're not making much. There's going to be days where you're a volunteer, and you have to be either maybe a volunteer or an unpaid intern, and you just have to kind of, you know, put your nose to the grindstone and work. It's a long haul, but it's really enjoyable, because at the end of the day, you're doing something that, you know, people come home from their long days of work and they get to sit down and enjoy, and you're kind of those people's outlets to entertainment or just decompressing. So, you know, I've just always been like, hey, if this is a possibility, you know, and I've, you know, knock on wood, haven't had anyone tell me that I'm completely crazy, so that's good. But you know, if you can do something, and if you want to do it, and that's the other thing, it's, are you willing to do it, right? Are you willing to put in the hours? Are you willing to sacrifice, you know, time with friends, time with family, you know, moving away? I mean, I'm from where you guys are from Maryland, right? And I'm here in Pittsburgh, so you do have to do some uncomfortable things, but that's part of, I think, just life in general, is just removing yourself from the bubble, as I like to call it. I know we're getting out of COVID, so I don't want to give anyone PTSD, but that whole notion of, this is my reality, you got to step out of that and go somewhere else, so then you can get your name out more. But it's honestly, it's just, if you love it and if you have a passion for it, then do it. I don't like when people tell me, or when people say, I'm not going to do that because I'm afraid of how people are going to view me or what they're going to say. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, and this is just general advice, and I'll tell you guys this, you know, I'm looking at people that I was not too far removed from. You know, I've been in your guys' shoes. I know what it's like to be a senior at Georgetown Prep. I totally get it. Okay. I don't know if you guys had Dr. Oakes last year. I don't know if he still teaches just junior history, but
Yep.
I get it. Okay. The man's handwriting is really hard to read, but he's a phenomenal teacher. He's a great teacher. But there's some things that, you know, you obviously don't want to do in life, but you have to do them. But again, if they're something that you love, passion, do it. There should be no reason why you should not do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
Very
really
much.
like that. I mean, I've listened to the local sports radio station, 1067 The Fan, growing up my whole life. And I kind of have that like similar passion. I kind of want to get into that same business. So I would say like to add off Ryan's point earlier, my favorite part about doing like this whole podcast sports media thing is getting to meet new guests and kind of picking their brain. Have you had any favorite guests or guests that stand out to you?
Man, you know, I've had, you know, I like that you bring that up, both of you, about meeting new people and picking their brains, because I think that's another part of it. I mean, I've gotten through this, I've met so many people from so many walks of life, so many different sports, everything. If I had to pick a favorite guest, I don't think I have really a favorite guest, but somebody that I always love having on, no matter what, a Georgetown Prep grad, a current overseas pro player in the Philippines, played at Old Dominion, Lauren Brill. Shout out, Lauren, if you're listening, you're the man, you know that. I think it's the other thing that I've loved is the relationships that I've built with guests, right? I mean, there's some people that I've never even met in person, and I will text them and just chat with them, see how they're doing. And that's a big part of being in sports, is forming relationships. But a favorite guest, you know, I've been really lucky with a lot of cool people. I've had Tim Kirchin on my show a couple times. I've had both the play-by-play announcers for the Pirates on a couple times. Zach Collins from the Trailblazers, Cam Johnson from the Phoenix Suns. Wow, a favorite guest. I don't think there's really a favorite. I'm trying to think of a really wild like story. I actually, one time I had somebody come on my show and they like dropped the ball. Like they actually got COVID. Like they just announced it on the air. And I was just like, okay. And that's the other thing. I mean, you're going to find chatting with me, I go on tangents, but I bring it back onto the main road. When you find somebody saying something that is off your script, just go with it, because if you find a really good follow-up question, that makes it not so interviewee, right? You want to be able to make it sound conversational, like what we're doing right now. You know, you guys sharing your input on things and kind of going back and forth. Somebody says something interesting like that. I mean, I was not prepared to have somebody tell me, yeah, I got COVID. So I asked them, you know, what was that like? How did you have to go through that? What were the parameters? So I would say probably, I think the guest that I've been most fortunate to have, or the luckiest, is definitely Tim Kirchin, just because that man is one of the busiest people in all of sports, in all of baseball. And he somehow, I don't know how, but he's able to find time for a little old me. And he's a great dude. He always brings lots of insight. And yeah, I've always loved having Tim on my show.
That's great. That's great. I remember in one of our earlier episodes, we interviewed one of our physics teachers, Mr. Fenfer, and he out of nowhere he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm in a hotel room because oh yeah, I have COVID by the way." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just funny how you kind of brought that up as well. Quick question: did you ever have Matt Mervis on your podcast?
I did, yeah. I had Matt on not too long ago. I've had Chandler on. I just had another prep grad, Ian Fitzsimmons. Great guy. You guys should reach out to him. He's a really nice guy. Does college football for ESPN. Done a bunch of radio stuff out in Dallas. What other prep grads have I had on my show? I'm trying to think. Lauren, obviously, I've had him on lots of times. I mean, he and I have been friends for years. But yeah, I had Matt on not too long ago. He's been playing really well with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, so I'm really pleased about that. He's got a great, bright future, and he's a unique individual because of the fact that he pitches and plays in the field. He can do both. So I found that very interesting, especially with the whole thing with Ohtani and what he's doing in baseball right now and how big of an impact he's had on the game so far. So very interesting. But yeah, Matt's a great guy. I loved having Matt on.
Yeah, I remember because I used to watch him in high school, and that kid, insane.
Yeah.
Compared
He's
him
really well. He's been playing very well this year. I mean, I follow him and I see people are reposting stuff about him. So he's, must be doing well. Chandler's doing great at, down for the Peoria Chiefs. I think that's how you say it. The Cardinals minor league system. So he's been doing really well. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely representing prep very well for sure in the baseball world.
All right, it's great. So quick question. So usually when, sorry, my Alexa's turned on. So my question is, for us, we usually find guests based off like maybe DMs or anything like that. What is like your process of like trying to find like a guest? Is it like on the GP app or is it on Instagram? What is it?
So I do the DM thing, but what I have found with having kind of like a business Instagram now is that a lot of those messages, they get pushed to a different category. So you don't see them in the primary. And some of these people are, very popular. So they're going to be, messaged and reached out to constantly. So a message from a podcast that they've never heard of probably is not going to jump out to them. What I do is this. It's a very, I don't want to say stressful, but it's almost kind of like an exhilarating process because it's kind of like this chase, if you will. I usually try and reach out to people that I know in the sports world that I know a lot of people and that are very well connected. So trying to find those people that they are connected, not necessarily me, but I'm connected to them. But then also just a lot of my guests, if I'm being very honest, have come from other guests. I've had a lot of guys from the Cardinals minor league system because of Chandler. I've had a couple guys come on the show because of Lauren, former teammates of his and whatnot. I actually had one of the running backs for the Miami Dolphins, Patrick Laird, on not too long ago, and I got him through another guest that I've become, friends with. Actually, my roommate, if he's listening to this, is friends with him, and that's how I got in contact with him. So again, it goes back to who you know and the connections you make, but it also is just being, and I've had people tell me this all the time, and when I hear it, it's just like, okay, this is a broken record, but it's very true. How you treat people will take you incredibly far in life. If you are willing to be really nice to some, I've had the amount of time, and I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but I've had people, pull no-shows. They just decide not to come. They decide not to answer. How do you respond to that, right? You can be one of two ways. You can be really angry and send a really angry message, or you can just leave it alone and just move on. And by moving on, then you can actually find something better down the road, coincidentally enough. And I've had that happen. I've had somebody in the minor league system for the Cubs try to get him on, didn't answer. And so I just bounced to someone else and I rolled through with that. But a lot of it is just reaching out to people that I know, people that I played basketball with. I personally was very fortunate to play basketball with a lot of people that were good at basketball. I was very average, hence the name Riding the Pine. So I got kind of lucky with that, knowing people that were really good at basketball and they always liked me. And so I was like, hey, can you help me out here? And 9 times out of 10, they were like, yeah, sure. So that's, it's a lot of luck. I'm going to be honest with you. It's a lot of luck. I've started to tap into the GP Connect a little bit more, but I have found that just going directly to people and hitting them up on their cell phone and just going right to the source is the easiest way. And if you know those people, then I would definitely use those resources.
Yeah, that's very interesting because I kind of try to find the guests for our podcast, and I'm just constantly shooting DMs out to people. Then every so often one will hit, and then we try and get it done. And so also we do a lot of prep. We get a whole Google folder of all different episodes that we do. What is your preparation for an episode look like? Do you guys what does yours look like?
So I pretty much just whatever topic I have on my phone, my notes. There's a huge savior, and I outline like I'm, and I learned this as an intern with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I'm going to tell you guys this: always plan ahead. Always, 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 always plan ahead. If you've got a show coming out on Tuesday, let's say, you got to start preparing for that show, for the next Tuesday too, because you never know what's going to happen. A guest pulls out the last minute, something goes wrong with the episode and the uploading process. So you have to have enough time to, maneuver through that. So I usually just try and plan out ahead as far as I can, topics that I want to discuss, also looking at what is kind of going on during that time that an episode will be coming out. So the NBA draft next Friday, probably going to have an episode come out with that. But really, it's just going online, researching. When I first started, I kind of started with a whole script. So essentially, I typed out everything that I said, every single thing, and it was just too time consuming. It would take way, way, way too much time. So I started bullet pointing stuff and kind of capitalizing everything that I want to say. But I've gone to the point now where, I'll go through and I'll research everything, and not, maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10, I'm not even looking at the notes. It's just because the muscle memory of what I, researched the night before, and I look at it that day, and then I just kind of go in and I also give my 2 cents on things and whatnot. But mostly it's just taking notes, finding a topic that's interesting, something that's prevalent. But the other thing is making sure that, you don't put something out when it's too late. You don't want to put out a stale episode, as I call it, where it's like stale news. It's old. I want to hear about you guys, man. I want to hear about you two. I want to hear about this prep podcast. I am wildly fascinated. I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me there's a podcast club now at Georgetown Prep.
I don't think there's a podcast club, but I mean, there's a newspaper club. That's, I think, the closest to it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, our podcast has a little bit of a weird story to it. So, back in March of 2020, when COVID got shut down, me and my buddy, who's not here, we were assigned a journal entry. So we had to write 2 journal entries a week for English. It's kind of like, how is living in COVID like? So we asked our teacher if we could do a podcast instead. So then we did kind of a podcast talking about like how things are going in COVID, how are we reacting to new social norms and things like that. Then once school ended in May, we decided, to keep it going. And then we added a couple guys to our crew. Now that's when Ryan joined, and we kind of went through the summer doing like sports podcasts, because that's kind of what we naturally did, just kind of like lunch table talk, like when you're just sitting at the table just talking, just trying to make like a sports show. Then the fall rolled around, fall and winter, and we kind of just started transitioning to guests. And then right at the start of this year, we started to take it a little bit more seriously, trying to go find some like real guests like yourself. And we started doing way more prep. We moved over to YouTube. We used to be audio only. So now I edit videos. So I put an intro and outro, and I'll do clips for that on a separate channel. And we've kind of just grown it up until now. So that's kind of the story of our podcast.
That's really cool, man. I mean, I think the great thing is that you've got a group of you, I wish that I had somebody, because I'm doing everything. All right. I'm running social media. I'm editing the episodes. I'm finding the guests. I'm researching. So it becomes a lot. So that is pretty cool that you guys have like a group doing it. Do you guys want to get into sports broadcasting? Is that what you guys want to do in the long run? I know, Colin, you said that. What about you, Ryan?
Maybe a little bit, but the thing is with me, like, I love making content, like, in general. And there's like this YouTube channel called Momentum, and I'm a big baseball guy. So they focus on, they make a whole bunch of like baseball content, and they like focus on like, how do you make content like in general, and like, how do you get out to the public? And I've just always been like kind of interested in that kind of world, trying to provide like entertainment, especially like for these big platforms like YouTube and like Instagram and all these kind of social media outlets. So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of been what I've liked. So
yeah, well, hey, it's a fascinating world, right? I mean, we're all kind of in this technology age and whatever, so it's something to take advantage of. I mean, this is great. I mean, you guys need to keep doing this. And another thing is that you're starting this way earlier than I did. So that's another feather in your cap that you have to be very proud of, is that you've got, exactly, put that feather in your cap. Because I mean, hey man, I didn't start doing this until, I'm 20. Oh, I'm so old. I'm 24 now. I started this when I was like 23. So, I was out of college when I started this. I also am, older in podcasting. It's kind of become this new medium over the last few years. I wish I started this in college, but it wouldn't have worked, living with roommates and, school schedule and, playing basketball at that time for a little bit. So it would have been too much, but you guys starting it now, keep it going. Keep it going. Do not stop. Don't listen to what people tell you. Don't listen to what the guys at school tell you. Don't listen to what, whomever tells you. I'm trying to think of other teachers that are still there. Is Mr. Cubic still there?
Cubic. Oh, I think he's at Modern Day right now.
Yeah, he was a good one. Yeah, he was a good one. I had Dr. Oaks.
He's still there. He's still there.
Yeah, I had a feeling he was. I actually, when was it? Maybe a year or two ago, I was home for a little bit and I went to prep to go work out and I saw him still walking around the school. I said, well, some things don't change about life. But yeah, man, I mean, hey, keep doing this. You guys have to keep pushing this because the biggest thing is consistency. If you're not consistent for 2 weeks, boom, you just lost about 10 followers, and 10 followers might be small at that point, but 2 weeks goes by and then 4 weeks go by and then 6 weeks go by and all of a sudden you have 30 followers that have just lost interest and they're like, I don't really care about this. Research the heck out of this. This is again, a lot of this, I'll be honest with you, a lot of this was not necessarily something that you're going to sit down and hear in a classroom. I personally did not want to have somebody sit down and tell me, this is how you do broadcasting, this is how you do podcasting, because everybody sounds different in the business. Everybody sounds different. At home, you've got Kevin Sheehan. Kevin Sheehan does a phenomenal job. But Kevin Sheehan, he sounds very different from the guys here in Pittsburgh, like Joe Starkey and Ron Cook. All of them went to school for something along the lines of what we're getting into, and they all sound very different. So it's like, well, what does it matter who is taught and who's not? It's a matter of just getting up behind a microphone and just not caring what people think, and listen, you'll come to find out that there are some people that just public speaking horrifies them. It's one of the scariest things in life, I think. But if you're willing to do it, people will tip their hat to you and say, hey, you know what? I give you a lot of credit for that.
Yeah,
That's great.
consistency's been one thing that is during the summer when there's no school has been a lot easier. It's also why we kind of coined the term locker room podcast summer, or LRP summer for short, just because we put more work into it and get like higher quality episodes and better guests and stuff like that. Whereas like the school would be way less.
What's your process? I mean, how do you guys go about this?
So typically we'd reach out to someone normally it's a Instagram DM. I think I reached out to you on GP Connect.
Yeah.
Then normally we try and schedule it. We have a group chat on our phones where we're just talking mainly scheduling of, can we do this date? Can we do this time? So on and so on. And then we try, once we find a date and find a time, we make a Google Doc of topics or questions or ideas that we want to hit and stuff like that. Then we I start these calls about an hour before, and any of our other 3 co-hosts, since it's a total team of 4, they're just welcome to join early and just kind of work on stuff. Hey, we want to go from here to here, transition from this to that. And then after we do the episode, I'll just download this Zoom call. Then I'll normally it goes pretty well. So obviously we try to avoid curse words at all times, but our last guest had a little bit of fun with it. So I had to censor that. But then normally if there's no cursing, I'll just throw an intro and an outro in front of it. And then I could just download it, and then that's the whole file. So.
Well, that's great. And it's exciting to hear that people, I mean, you guys are 17, 18 years old and you guys are starting to get into this. I mean, that's really great. I personally wish that there was something like this when I was your age. I don't know if I would have kept playing basketball. I probably would have just steered into that direction, but it is what it is. But I think the workflow is very important, and you guys sound like you have a great workflow. And even listen, anybody knows what senior year at Georgetown Prep is like. The first 3 months are going to be awful. Okay, they're going to be bad. If I'm being honest with you, they're going to be bad. But once you know where you're going to school, think of that same kind of mindset. Okay, I know that I'm getting to school. I'm going to ease off the gas pedal a little bit. You can't do that because they will pull you. They will pull your admission. Trust me, they will. It's the same thing with the podcast. We've got a lot of great guests coming out. The podcast is doing really well. Just kick up. No, can't do that. You've got to continuously apply pressure because my biggest thing, and I don't know if it's just maybe how I think, but I always don't like passing up on an opportunity because somebody else out there, like you guys, could be getting ahead, right? I mean, it's kind of like a game with us creators of, well, somebody out there is getting this person. Well, somebody out there is making this kind of video. I mean, I've started trying to get more videos for myself. And a lot of it is, again, kind of time and whether or not I have the time. But, I mean, you probably can see, I'll give you a little tour, I mean, I've messed around with this, trying to make a cooler, like backdrop, like a cooler, because, before it was just a plain white wall and nobody wants to stare at a plain white wall. So it's those little things. And a lot of it comes from just sitting on the laptop all day and just researching, how do I make this thing pop out more? How do I make somebody come and gravitate towards this? And you'll find it very fascinating. I don't know if they teach like anything like Photoshop related or Adobe Illustrator related or anything like that. Wherever you guys go to school, take a class on that and pay attention, because that is one of the biggest regrets that I have, is that I was too busy just thinking about what I was doing that weekend and not paying attention to Photoshop class, or wasn't paying attention to this class. And then now I'm like, well, I have, and then you don't think you're going to actually ever need it. And then all of a sudden you're 23, 24 years old, the pandemic hits, you're not announcing at the moment because of the pandemic, and you have to figure out all of this stuff on your own. Pay attention in Photoshop class, pay attention in Illustrator class, take an Adobe class. I highly suggest, if you've got an elective and whatever, I mean, Colin, if you're going to be going to school for media and journalism, you will probably take classes like this because you will need to learn how to do this stuff. I highly, highly, highly suggest it. And again, just pay attention. That's the biggest thing. In all honesty, don't be staring off at the wall. Don't look at your laptop. Don't look up like what, bar you're going to that weekend with your friends. Sit and pay attention and take the time. It's going to be like, why am I sitting here and doing this? But trust me, from somebody that I have said many times, and if my roommate is listening to me, which he probably is, he will attest to this. I really regret not paying attention in Photoshop class. I mean, that's just one example, and not being able to, mess around with this. Now, I'm lucky that I've got another good buddy of mine. Shout out Carbonite Convos. I have to throw them in there just because they're a great podcast, all about Marvel and Star Wars. I'm very Star Wars and Marvel illiterate, but it's a great podcast, and he's done a phenomenal job with just video editing. And I get a lot of my tips from him. And honestly, I mean, I don't know if you guys mess around with TikTok, but I'm having to start to learn about TikTok, and I feel really old that I'm having to learn a social media, because I remember when Instagram was a big thing when I was in high school. Do you guys do TikTok? I mean, is that a big thing in your crowd at prep, your age group? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. I don't really do much of it, but it's still massive.
Yeah, it's huge. That's the big thing. Videos. I mean, what you guys are doing with these episodes right now, I probably need to start doing that more with guests. The thing with the phone is it's easy. You can get it done in 15 minutes, no time. And then all of a sudden you've got 15 minutes of a quality interview with a really good guest. Having a, with Zoom, you got to make sure that they've got the time to, sit down and whatever. So I definitely need to get into that more, but again, just pay attention in Photoshop class, be consistent, and always have a passion for this. Cause I'm telling you, there will be days where you're like, why in the heck am I doing this? Who told me I should do this? Like what idea in my mind said this was a good idea? It'll pay off, because again, at the end of the day, it's always, for me, I always love when I got a friend that listens to the show and they're like, hey man, I loved your show last episode. I love when you said it, because then all of a sudden it's a conversation starter. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had teachers come up to you, and like, you guys are probably celebrities at prep, right? I mean, people know you guys are the locker room podcast. It's a big deal. It's a cool thing. And yeah, I mean, and again, it doesn't matter about how much money you're going to make on this, because if you love what you do, it doesn't, the monetary value does not mean anything. I know people that have just a normal job. They're doing like normal things and they don't like it. And it's just like, they're kind of running in circles, they're running in place, not getting anywhere. Use the time that you guys have being 17, 18 years old, and these next 4 years So that when you're my point, you know, when I'm 30 and I've got you guys coming on my show, because you guys are huge, you guys are like, wow, man, you were right. Like we kept consistent. We started early. Like you figured it out. I was like, well, hey, you know, and trust me, it will work. I mean, there's been times where I've been like, this is not going to work. And then all of a sudden it works. And it's like a happy surprise. I mean, tell me who you guys have had on. I know you guys had Denny McCarthy on. I've been meaning to listen to that. I mean, who've been some big guests for you guys?
Uh,
I mean, we just had your guy Chandler Redmond.
Nice.
I was
Yeah,
on
he's a great guy.
Connect looking for yours, and I think Ryan also gave me his name to reach out to. I also saw that you did one with him, and I was like, oh, this could be very, very interesting. That episode went very well. We have most of our really exciting guests are planned in August because we recently got a bunch of really strange DMs back from people I wasn't expecting DMs back from. So, I mean, I might just, I'll tease one. We have a
Wow.
so
That's very interesting.
random Instagram DM paid off.
Yeah.
I think I know I'm taking video production next year, so I'll learn how to do Adobe and all that. And I think Ryan's also in that class, so I'm looking forward to
So
that.
they offer that at Prep now.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember we had like ThinkPad laptops, and like that was the huge thing. There was like a laptop cart, and that's where you got the laptops. I mean, I'm trying to think of other things that are still at Prep. Because I feel like a lot of the teachers that I had, like, have either graduated or not graduated, like retired, or is Mr. Butcher still there?
Yeah, he is. He is.
He's a great teacher. He's the man. Mr. Butcher, if you're listening, hello. Mr. Fernary, is Mr. Fernary still there, or Mr. Banky?
Mr. Fernary, yeah. Did you ever Mr. Barry? Yeah, he's there.
I didn't have Mr. Barry. I had, you guys probably don't know him. Ryan, your dad's Mr. Rodriguez, right? Like the Mr. Rodriguez. Okay, he knows who I'm talking about when I'll say this name. Don Cheeseman, Mr. Cheeseman, top 5 favorite teacher at Prep. Sorry for everybody else, but he's a Hall of Fame Prep teacher. He retired though my senior year. We actually, you could probably ask your dad about this. We had a big senior day like cookout in the parking lot, and I remember I had 6th period lunch with, I had 6th period English with Mr. Cheeseman. He had a class my senior year, so 2015. It was a heroes class, so we literally were watching like Batman and Lord of the Rings and all these other really cool movies, and we had all said, all right, we're skipping school that day. It was literally the last day of, like, literally so like nobody could get us. Like we were untouchable for one day. And we went into, a bunch of us that we had 6th period English. We went into Mr. Cheeseman's class. I think it was the 3rd floor of Hawes, not McCavanagh, Hawes. And we walked in and said, Mr. Cheeseman, we got a party for you outside. And we walked him out there. Like, I mean, he was like king for the day. Somebody was grilling up burgers for the guy. It was great. It was really cool. Mr. Butcher, one of my favorite teachers, Mr. Fernary, great guy. Funny story about Mr. Fernary. First day of senior year, I walked into history class, and I had Mr. Banky. I don't know if Mr. Banky's still there or not. Is he still there?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. Ryan, your dad probably knows who he is because he helped out with baseball a lot. He was a really good baseball player. I had him freshman year. And this is this is a prequel story to leads into Mr. Fernary. So Mr. Banky was an active military man, and I had him freshman year of high school. And the way my last name looks is, it looks like Luke Ridenour. I don't know if you guys know who Luke Ridenour is. He's a basketball player. He played in the NBA for about 10, 11 years. Look him up. He was a typical NBA journeyman. He was really good at Oregon. I think he was traded at one point like to 5 teams in a week. It was really wild. So I always had people ask me like, hey, are you related to Luke Ridenour? No, because my last name has an E, his doesn't. So I walk into Mr. Banky's class, first day of freshman year, and he's calling off roll, and he starts saying Luke. So I'm looking around, and I know everybody in the class, and there's nobody named Luke. So I'm looking, and a little like bulb in the back of my head was like, I know he's talking about you, but just ignore it. Just play it off like you have no idea what he's talking about. Because I had kids all the time, like when I play AAU basketball or at a tournament, say, hey, are you related to Luke Ridenour? So he kept saying Luke. And then he just blurts out Ridenour. And now, again, Ridenour is how you say it, but I went through prep just Ridenour because I was like, I'm not going to correct everybody. It takes too much time. So for the entirety of my time at prep in the 2 years, because Mr. Banky was gone my sophomore and junior year, he came back the second semester of my senior year. So that's why I had Mr. Frenary, because he was kind of essentially at the start a fill-in teacher. Great guy, Mr. Frenary, and Mr. Banky's a great guy too. But so he came back from tour and picked up where he left off. Called me Luke. First day of second semester senior. Hey Luke, how's it going, man? Haven't seen you in a while. It's like, Mr. Banky, it's good to have you back. But back to Mr. Frenary. First day I walked in the senior history class, and we all know that the dress code at prep is very loose at times in terms of like, okay, it says like a yellow, blue, or white shirt, but kids are wearing red and orange and green. I did it. You guys probably do. Everybody does it. So I walked in, and this was probably my biggest mistake. I walked in with just a big red shirt. I mean, I looked like Clifford walking into class. And I've got this big red shirt on. I've got a tie on, and not even like 2 minutes of walking in class. And mind you, like this dude is like, Mr. Frenary, I'm so sorry. Please don't take this offensive. But he's like shorter than I am. So I'm like, okay, are you a student? So he walks up to me and he goes, I'm going to have to give you a jug. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? I haven't even sat down. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, why? Like, what did I do? He was like, well, your shirt does not like align with dress code. And I was like, and mind you, there's like, somebody's got a green shirt on, somebody's got a brown shirt on, somebody in the back's got like a pink shirt on or whatever. And I was like, I mean, there's a lot of other people that don't. And he's like, well, they might have to get a jug too. I was like, he's like, I'm going to check on this rule. I'll get back to you. I was like, okay. And long story short, I didn't get a jug for it. Is Mrs. Wilson still there? Geometry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. The only jug I ever got was from Mrs. Wilson because I didn't bring my compass. And I'll never forget Mr. Dugan, who's no longer at the school, but he was at the school. Great. Mr. Dugan's a phenomenal human being. He said to me, he's like, what did you get a jug for? I was like, I didn't bring a compass. He's like, just do your math homework for 10 minutes and you can go. I'm not gonna hold you for that. I was like, okay, all right. So you guys get it. I mean, Georgetown Prep, it's an interesting world. You know, when I take my friends from around here over back home and I show them, they're like, whoa, man, you went to a country club. It's like, yeah, well, yeah, it kind of is. A little bit it is. But there's a beauty in it because there's, connections that you can make with people that turn out really good for you. So those are some, I'm trying to think of some other wild prep stories. I know we meant to talk about sports, but this is like jogging the mess out of my memory. I saw you had Miss Denny on. She was a great teacher. I love Miss Denny. She was my sophomore year chemistry teacher. Mr. Nardella, is he still there?
He is. Mr.
Nardella, good to see you, my friend. Great guy. Loved Mr. Nardella. See, this is what happens, right? I go on a little tangent. You guys are like, oh, this was a bad idea. I'm giving you guys content. I'm trying to think of some other teachers. I heard that Mr. McGinnis is now Dr. McGinnis, so I have to refer to him as Dr. McGinnis. And I had Mrs. Giblin, I think it was, Mrs. Gribben.
Gribben.
Yeah. I had her. Yeah, she, Mrs. Gribben, she was a funny lady. Whenever somebody would like crack a joke, like she was very good at kind of being that like backup like comedian and just like sliding in another joke just on top of it. You could tell that like, I mean, because her kids were phenomenal lacrosse players. You could tell that, yeah. So she kind of got it. Because I tell people this all the time. There's a beauty in the teachers at prep because they get to like tag in on like the joking. You know what I mean? Like they kind of like, all right, like we can, mess around because it's all guys, right? I mean, it's, but yeah, and Prep's a very fascinating place. It's a great place, very fascinating place. Got very sick of food after a while though, but that, you know what, you're going to find, oddly enough, okay? I wound up really missing the food from prep once I went to college because I was like, you know what, the food was not that bad. I mean, like, I don't know what they serve now, but like, this was always the worst when they had the Lent lunches and you didn't have meat. So we all, yeah, it was grilled cheese, pasta, and salad like every Friday in Lent. Like that was my lunch. I mean, now had to go grilled cheese. I remember they still like had deli meat, so I was like, okay, they can't take it all from us. But yeah, I remember like freshman year walking in, there's like the South Room, and you're like, oh my God, like what or whatever. I think it was called the South Room, right? Is that the name of it?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Yeah. See, it's been a long time. You have to remember, like I'm like I know people are listening like, he's not old. I am old. I am, in relation to high school kids, I am very old. But yeah, no, the food, you get used to it. But then once you leave and you go to college, you're like, stuff wasn't too bad. It was actually pretty good. But you know, Prep's a great place. You know, you guys are lucky to be there. I mean, Ryan, I'm sure you've probably been around it your entire life. I got to dive into these questions now. How are the sports at Prep? I hear the basketball program's doing great. I mean, how's the baseball program, football? Everyone's, you know, still winning, I'm hoping.
Turns out the baseball program's doing pretty well. We went undefeated this year, 14-0, finished number 1 in Maryland.
Clap it up, absolutely.
Let's
Clap
go.
it up.
Yeah, and we beat Landon in the IC championship, so even better.
There's another
A big clap. That's a big clap. Yes, we love when you beat Landon.
Yes.
I think
So,
we're a clean sweep of Landon this year.
Wow.
I think we did.
Sweep of Landon.
That's
We
happened
did.
once. It happened our freshman year where we went every sport. But
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely didn't happen when I was there because they always had our number in hockey. They were always really good at hockey.
they're always good. They're always good.
They're always good at hockey.
They were nasty.
Yeah. The lacrosse was, I mean, that's another thing. If you guys go to school out of state, you're going to be like, these places don't have lacrosse. I mean, I came to college in Pittsburgh, okay, Western Pennsylvania. So this is like football town, right? I remember like saying like, yeah, like our high school, I mean, like you guys know, nationally ranked. I mean, lacrosse is a big deal. And they're like, oh, my high school had a lacrosse club. I think like my senior year of high school. I was like, we had like my junior year, we had, what was it, like 20 kids go to like D1 schools. I mean, like it was UVA, Notre Dame, Hopkins, Duke, UNC. And it was just like, oh my God, like I went to a little Division III school in Pittsburgh and these kids are just freaks of nature. A lot of kids in my class were great. I mean, shout out David Lipka. He was a manimal. That kid was unbelievable. Finn Dunn, Austin McDonald, Joey Ultimus in between the pipes senior year. He held it down after Will Rayleigh left. Stonewall Rayleigh, what a guy. He was very, very good lacrosse. His brother John is a great lacrosse player too. You guys probably know John. Trying to think of, we always had Landon in basketball. Basketball was always kind of like, that was easy. We were like, okay, well, basketball will win. Football is like, yeah, we'll win. Lacrosse was a toss-up. Hockey was a runaway with them. I'm trying to think of other sports. Like baseball, I feel like we always had their number. I mean, Landon was always okay. I was actually on, Ryan, your dad would know this team. This was the 2012 maybe JV baseball team, Coach Luke Proietta, who actually you guys should get on. He was my baseball coach at Prep. He was a dorm parent. He's head coach at St. Peter's now for the baseball team. Phenomenal job there. We were like 21-0 or something, and we like ran through everybody, and then we played St. Albans. And they had a kid just throwing like just curveballs the entire time. And you're like a freshman in high school trying to hit a curveball. You're like, what is this? Yeah. And we wound up getting mercy ruled in the IAC championship after we just ran through everybody. That was the saddest just walk from the dugout out to right field. We all like kneeled around. Yeah.
Did you have Coach Hart for JV?
Yes. Wow. I haven't heard that name in a long time. Yes. Yeah. He was a tough dude, man. Yeah, I remember he would like, nobody would ever make us run. And then like, he would make us run hills. And I was like, dude, we were in baseball, like relax, like take it easy, running hills. I mean, you guys probably still had to practice on the practice field, right? For JV baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that hill was so annoying. Give me 1 second. You guys are probably gonna need to edit this out. I need to get my charger. 1 second. So sorry. I probably should have charged it before. But anyways, yeah. So I'm gonna ask you guys this question: who are you guys root for? What are your sports? What are your teams? Are you guys local guys? Or are you guys out of town guys?
I'd say
local.
Local, yeah. Mm-hmm. Big. I'm a big Nats fan myself.
Okay.
Big Washington football team fan. I have no clue what they're gonna change the name. Do you have any idea or?
I heard somebody like copyrighted a bunch of names. Like some dude just was like, I'm going to patent everything they can't touch, which is pretty smart. Don't get me started on Dan Snyder. I think he's the equivalent of Bob Nutting in Pittsburgh. Bob Nutting is probably the most hated man in Pittsburgh. For good reason. Yeah. I mean, he's the Pirates owner is just he's an idiot.
I feel bad for your Pirates this year, especially. It's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm all Wisconsin, like for whatever reason, like I've been a massive, I mean, like the Milwaukee Bucks being in the finals right now, like I'm like a little kid in a candy store. I don't know how to like handle myself. My friends have been like so annoyed with me because I just keep saying like deer in 6 or Bucks in 6 or fear the deer. I actually drove up to game 3 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. I drove up. Yeah, my buddy's like a big Suns fan, and he was like, "Dude, we've got to go." And so I was like, "All right, like no way we're going, right?" I mean, kind of okay. Hold on one second. I'm getting a phone call. Oh boy, this is such a nightmare. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Drove up for game 3 of the NBA finals. That was intense. Just driving there, just like 5 hours Saturday, spent the night in Indiana, got up, went to Milwaukee, just had a day and a half with my buddy, went to the game. I don't know. Are you guys big NBA guys?
I pay attention to the NBA, especially
I pay attention to the NBA a little bit, but I don't know. If the Wizards were better, I'd pay more attention to it, but they're terrible.
I would say terrible, but
They're pretty bad.
They are a poorly ran team that has a lot of potential. I think that if they
that's the most frustrating part.
Yes, and that's the problem with a lot of teams in DC. I mean, the Learners do a great job with the Nationals, but Snyder's an idiot. I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing. And I think that the Wizards, their ownership from top to bottom is just all over the place. I actually had somebody on my show a while ago. He was one of the strength and conditioning coaches for the Wizards a couple years ago. And, he and I were just chatting about it. And it got me thinking, like, he was jogging my memory of all these names. And I was like, wow, Gilbert Arenas growing up, he was my favorite basketball player. There was some big time. There were some big deals in DC at one point or another. And now it's kind of archaic. It's old. It's calcified. It's not exciting anymore. It's stale. So yeah, I jumped ship from DC teams a long time ago because growing up, I didn't have a baseball team. So I was like, well, I'm going to be a Brewers fan because I don't want to root for everybody else's team. And then the Wizards traded to Gilbert Arenas away as my favorite player. I was like, an 8-year-old kid. I'm like, why would you do that? And then I was like, I'm going to be a Bucks fan. I'm going to be an everything fan. So Bucks, Packers, Brewers, Badgers. I'm sure some of the teachers at prep probably remember me wearing all sorts of different I always wore different random sweatshirts with team names on them and stuff. And I always had somebody come up to me like, is that allowed? Is that in the handbook? I was like, I don't know. No, if it doesn't have a hoodie on it, right? If it doesn't have a hoodie and there's no front pockets, it's okay. It's all good. And so I had like a crew neck sweater, and I'm like, how are you going to yell at me when I've got like a little patch of a team on? Like, you can't be that mad at me. Here's another hot question. Do you guys still do, well, I guess you didn't do it this past year, but in the past, do you guys still do in the George Center where you guys got like the projector for March Madness? You guys will all like, is that not a thing anymore? No.
God.
I can't remember if we did.
Did we do that? I don't remember.
I remember people playing Mario Kart on the screen with the projector.
Okay. All right. Do you guys still have that ping pong table in George Center?
It's gone. It like keeps breaking. But this year for COVID, they got 2 ping pong tables. They made the wrestling room to like this kind of like rec room. Best decision they've ever made.
It was just a big lounge. It was sick.
Oh yeah.
Really?
It was a bunch of chairs.
The whole wrestling room is just like an extension of the George Center.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it is.
But the George Center now has like classrooms in it. Like there's a bunch of tables for people to take virtual classes from. Or at least that was like last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of moved, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because when I was a freshman, the George Center was like a new thing. So like it was kind of the big lounge area. I had a couple classes. I think I had an English class in there one time. And then I had a math class one there one time, but that was it. It was more just like, you go and hang out, and then the library's upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the dean's office and whatnot. But I didn't really have many classes in there. Wow, prep has changed quite a bit since I've been there. That's crazy. Yeah. Good to hear that a lot of the people there are still there, though. That's a good thing. That's a good sign.
Oh yeah. What was the one thing that was so unfortunate, especially during the COVID era, is that we couldn't use the South Room. They had to make the field house cafeteria. Yeah, I know. It was
the field house was in the winter. It was terrible. It was freezing because it doesn't have any like insulation or anything like that. It's just a wall. There's nothing there. It's just doors and stuff like that and windows. It was freezing. And then when May rolled around, it got really hot.
Hey man, listen, the amount of times I had basketball practice in there with Coach George Wolf, shout out Coach George. Yeah, Coach Wolf's the man. Oh, freezing practices, gross. It was disgusting. It was like I felt like I was running in an ice box. And then I thought it would get better when I went to college, and we'd have like 5 a.m. practices, and then it's freezing. And then I was like, okay, well, I have to wear leggings now. So I started wearing leggings, which I never did before that, and it was a little interesting, but it just was simply to keep myself warm. But yeah, that field house, it gets chilly. It gets very chilly, and like you said, it gets very hot. I'm sure you've probably had a lot of baseball practice in there. I mean, I remember when they bring the cages down. I remember when was it? My sophomore year, maybe my freshman year. I don't know, but some practice or whatever. And we were doing like live BPs, or not like actually like swinging, but like, you had a guy standing in the box just to give the pitcher an idea. And I remember Tony Tabernacki, he was like kind of like a sidearm guy, and he just kept running it inside on me. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, we're like, he actually plunked me at one point. I was like, dude, this is a bullpen. What are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to, I'm a dummy. This is like dummy defense. But yeah, the field house is, I always felt that it was a saving grace though, a lot of the times, because just, I think with all of the teams that are going on at one time, it probably made a lot of sense. But it's good that the wrestling room's getting some use. I remember I always felt bad. We'd leave the locker room from practice for basketball, and we were always like done, fairly early, especially during the season. And you'd walk by and you see all the wrestlers, and they're just like carrying each other on their backs.
Yeah.
And they're like running up and down, and they're like doing like wheelbarrows with each other. And I was like, oh my God, like that's disgusting. That sounds, I never wanted to do wrestling. That just was very off-putting.
They'll have like 3 layers of clothing as well if they're like trying to lose weight. It's like, I don't know.
And they can't eat. They come to lunch. It's like, oh, that looks so good. I'm like, you want a bite? No, I can't. I'm watching my weight. The kid's like 130 pounds. I've got like 25, 30 pounds on the kid. I'm like, you need to watch your weight, buddy. Like, come on, man. And he's like, well, I got to make weight tomorrow. They'd eat like half a banana, and they're like, oh my God, that's going to mess up my weight. I always felt that wrestling was more stressful than enjoyable. You're always like paranoid about your weight. It's like, what's the point of that, right? I mean, I don't know. That's just me.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the same way. I'm like, I don't know why I don't see the fun in wrestling with like the weight watching and stuff like that, because like that's so like, yeah, it's such a big thing in wrestling to do.
It's one thing I've never understood, why people cut weight to down to certain weight classes. I feel like whenever I've like seen that, it's like, why don't you just go at whatever your natural weight fits you at? Like if you're 170, why are you cutting down to 165 or 160 to try to compete there? If you compete at 170, you compete at 170.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, I even remember kids that would do like 165, like middleweight, and then they would go to lightweight, and it was like 125. Now, mind you, you watch those kids on the wrestling mat, and they're like just unbelievable. I mean, they're like freaks. They're so good. I mean, in a good way. Like they're really. I mean, I remember my year, we had a lot of good wrestlers. Paul Trinafulu, he was an unbelievable wrestler. Wound up wrestling at Gettysburg. Colin Kowalski, I think he also wrestled at Gettysburg. Maybe, I don't know. Trying to think of some other guys. Alec Boyle was a good wrestler. The wrestling team at Prep, I mean, it's still like thriving, right? I mean, I remember they rattled off.
Spelta's carrying that, or he's a great coach for them.
Yeah, he's done a phenomenal job with the Prep. I mean, they've won like what 20 straight IAC championships or something. Just
it's like swimming.
Yeah, swimming. Oh, that's another thing. Swimming. We had a lot of good swimmers my year. We had Carson Vissering. He was like the number 1 best breaststroker. Joey Snodderly. We had Brian Goldstein. We had Adrian Lynn. Wow, I can't believe I'm remembering these names. Like, these are people I haven't like uttered their names in like years. Because you'll find like you'll have your career, like you guys will have like the locker room podcast, and you go to college and you're like, whoa, like I don't really talk to many, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because then you wind up meeting lifelong friends in college. I mean, college is. I know we were supposed to talk about sports. I know, but we just went on a random tangent. I'm sorry, but it's fun to talk to people that I'm kind of like looking back in the rearview mirror at, and I'm like, I was in their shoes one time, So if I can spit some random like empty knowledge for you, like that's great. I mean, you're definitely going to learn much more from just me. I mean, I don't really know much to myself, but I'm just sharing any insight that I've got. But where are you guys applying for school? I mean, where you guys want to go to college? What's kind of the radar for that for you guys?
Well, for me, I'm trying to play college baseball. So it's like more of like what colleges are available for me.
What colleges want him?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got reposted by Maryland today. I saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go, Ryan. I reposted
Hey,
by
man.
Maryland.
Thank you.
Put your foot to the gas pedal. Don't let off, man. I know your dad's not going to let you, but like as just a reaffirming thing, just don't. I mean, hey, listen, man. I'll be very honest with you. If I'm being very honest here, the reason why Riding the Pine is called Riding the Pine is because I literally rode the pine in high school. Like I literally didn't play. So it was like you guys said, the conversations you had in the locker room. These were the conversations I'm having at the end of the bench with my buddies. Like, we're not going to get in. We're up by 2 or we're down by 5. We're playing like, Episcopal or St. Stephen, St. Agnes. I'm not going to get in, And so it's like, okay, but you stay persistent, somebody's going to find you, and just get the tape out, go to showcases. I know this fall will probably be a big time, especially in the winter time. What schools, if you had your choice of your top 3 schools right now, what would be your top 3 schools to go play
Top
baseball?
3 schools right now.
You're just gonna name off the top 3 college baseball schools?
I mean, I could do that. I mean, the school that I'm looking at the most is probably. I've been talking to the coaches there. They're all great guys. One of my friends is going to actually be going to for baseball as well, and he's telling me all the great things about that. But I mean, yeah, the only thing is I don't like how close it is to where I am. But I mean, it's a cool place. Great coaches. So.
Do you guys want to go to school in state or out of state?
I mean, I would probably prefer go out of state, maybe like somewhere down south, around the East Coast.
I'm trying to go north.
Smart answer. That's a smart answer. You don't go. And people are probably listening. It's like, why would he tell them that? Don't go to school in state because again, mom and dad are right there. It's like, oh, I've got the safety net. Like, go somewhere else. Because let me tell you what. I walked out of Georgetown Prep my graduation. I went to Chatham University, and I was like, I am in a totally different world. I am not home. There's not, you'll find to realize like not everything in reality is like you've got a Chevy Chase Country Club here and Congressional's down the road. Like you step outside the bubble, you're like, oh God, this is and you get to meet new people from, different walks of life. I mean, that's, I think the coolest thing. That's the most exciting part. You get to meet people and you get to share your story. People are like fascinated with, people will be fascinated with where you went to school. I've told people about Georgetown Prep and they're like, that's a school. Like that sounds like a college. That's the typical answer that you get. But you'll see how much different, your upbringing is to somebody else's. But it's very interesting. Colin, where do you want to go to school, man?
I'm not getting recruited to play. I play ice hockey, and so not a whole lot of kids are getting recruited to play ice hockey out of Maryland. So I'm trying to find like schools with like broadcast journalism schools with good programs for that. And my college counselor recommended and I went and toured up there a week ago and I really liked it. So I think I would say that's probably my one right now. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I have the rest of my top 3 or top 5, what those schools are at the moment.
I'll throw out 2 other schools for you. I don't know if the counselors told you this, but Northwestern, unbelievable journalism program. Very, very good journalism program. Mike Greenberg went there. Who else went there? Michael Wilbon, he went there. Guy that does radio around here in Pittsburgh, Ron Cook, he went there. I mean, a lot of really Northwestern, Syracuse, and the Cronkite School in Arizona State. If you're feeling brave enough to go that far, I mean, hey, listen, man,
they got really good hockey out there.
And hey, and honestly, you can still do that in college. You can still do club. You can still do that. But
100%.
Coming from somebody that like took, played college basketball, played a college sport, it's very demanding. But once you if you decide to not do it anymore, like I'm not telling you don't do it, but I'm just saying if you decide like, I don't want to do it anymore, you'll find that you've got a lot of time. You've got a lot of time on your hands, but it's how you use that time. Partially why I stopped playing was because I wanted to focus on my career. I wanted to get into broadcasting. I wasn't kind of tired of waiting. I'm not ahead of the curve like you guys are. I was a little bit behind the 8 ball. So I would say that, again, get into it as early as possible and stick with it. Ryan, man, hey, wherever you go to school, dude, I've seen so many athletes, so many college athletes, so many random dudes just making a YouTube channel of what your day is like. Because somebody would be fascinated with what the day of the life of a college baseball player is like. What do you do on a daily basis? What do you do in the morning? What do you do after your workout? What's your workout like? Whatever. That's fascinating as anything. And somebody like you who wants to do content stuff and what you guys are doing is hand in hand. It's no different. It's all the same. It's entertainment. It all falls underneath the entertainment umbrella. And if you like entertaining, you just got to find that weird little like quirk that people like, like a phrase or, whatever it might be. And then you just roll from there. So yeah, those are great schools. Those are very, very good schools. I am not jealous of you guys having to do the SAT though. So I feel bad for you guys on that one, but you only have a 2-part SAT. I had a 3-part. So mine was out of 2,400. So yeah, that face you're making, Ryan, is exactly how I felt. And I had extra time. So I'm there from like 8 a.m. to like 2:30. Like I'm opening shop and I'm closing shop. Yeah, you feel very mentally drained after that. You don't want to. And then you go and you do that on a Saturday morning. Then you go on Monday and you guys still have like A day, B day, C day.
Yeah.
With the test days.
Yeah, my least favorite test day. And I'm sure it still resonates to this day at Georgetown.
Which day did you say?
E day. Is that still test or math day?
Math day.
That's my opinion, worst day of the week.
It's the worst day
Worst day of the week.
By a marathon. It is the worst day. E day. And Mr. Butcher, if you're listening to this, I want to thank you for helping me pass senior year pre-calculus or whatever it was, algebra 2. I was and Ryan, your dad probably knows this. I was a horrendous math student. I was so bad. I lived in the math department. Okay, Dr. Oakes, I never had, or not Dr. Oakes, Dr. Wisecarver, never had Dr. Wisecarver, right? Or Mr. Wisecarver. I got to know him because I was in the math department all the time. He's like, hey, how's it going?
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I swear. Oh my God, I used to go to the math department.
I've been right there. It's not fun.
Yelling at a different kid every single time.
Yeah, and you always know, I always knew who was going to be there after school. It was kind of like, yo, I'll see you in the math office. Like, we've got to go. And there was times where I was like, I remember a couple times, I got some tests back and it was always kind of a joke. It was like, am I going to pass this one? What's the over under on this one? I was just, now English was fine. Is Mr. Vanker still there?
Yes, he is.
I don't know what it is about his class. I loved his class because it was analyzing stuff, and I love analyzing stuff. So it's like, what if this in Beowulf means this in Macbeth or whatever, and you had to cross correlate things. Love that. Is Mrs. Napolitano still there?
She is.
Wonderful lady. She's a phenomenal, wonderful, wonderful lady. I'll never forget the books that I read at prep. Again, and I'm kind of airing out all my dirty laundry here, but whatever. Read actually from front to back very little. Spark Notes is you guys might be throwing yourself. Yeah, Spark Notes is safe.
I don't want to do too much about that just right now.
Yeah, you guys don't know anything about it, right? I obviously, but Spark Notes was a savior for me. It was my knight in shining armor. It was my favorite toy to use. It was literally everything. But I always will remember watching the movie Deliverance. I don't know if she still airs that in her class or not. But I watched Deliverance. It's a great movie. It's a little intense, but it was a really good movie. Wow, this is the biggest blast of the past. You know what I mean?
Down memory lane.
Yeah, down memory lane. No, for absolutely. Because I'm thinking back about it, and I'm like, wow. I remember I used to have 2 backpacks. I don't know how do you guys use the lockers much at school?
Nope.
Not at all.
Okay. I'm so glad you told me that because I never once used a locker at prep. Never once. I went there all 4 years, never missed a day of school. Minus the what you had to do, the what's it called? The service,
Yeah.
Yeah, Kairos or whatever it was called. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, Kairos.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the only days I missed. Never missed a day of school, and I never used a locker. I had 2 backpacks. What I would do is this. It depended on when I had lunch break. So if I always had 6-period lunch, which I thought was the best. I always felt like if you had 4th period lunch, it was like you shouldn't even eat breakfast. You should just go to lunch.
Wait, 4th period lunch, way too.
4th period is definitely the worst.
4th period is the worst.
6th and 5th since I've had both, but those 2 are Those two are actual lunch times, at least.
Absolutely. And that was always my argument. It's like, why would I be eating lunch at 10:50 in the morning? You know, I'm sure the schedule probably is still the same, right? 42-minute classes and everything. You guys get out of like 2:46, or that was the most random time.
Oh yeah, it's like so
Spot on.
specific.
Wow, look at that. You still got us. That's
They sent them out the other day, so I printed mine out.
Well, okay, this will be something wild for you guys. Do you guys have blue week and gray week?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember, Ryan, your dad held a little conference, not conference, whatever you want to call it, in the big auditorium. And now I'm drawing a blank. What's the big auditorium called? Yes. Figgy 4. Yeah, exactly. And he was describing this to us. He was like, all right, so we've got this new schedule. And we're all like, you're already hosing us with A through like F day. Like, come on, man. Like, what else is there to do? G Day is a savior. G Day.
Great day.
G-Day.
Great
But here's
day.
the thing. G Day, exactly, Colin. G Day represents great day. But the thing is,
A day.
I get hosed on quizzes that day. It was kind of like, it's not a test day, but that doesn't mean like quiz day or like quest day. Do you guys have quests? Is that
Quest
still a
day,
thing?
I've had a couple quest days. Yep.
Yeah. I
They need to
couldn't even imagine going back to school right now. Like, I just couldn't. Like, if you guys having to do homework, like, that doesn't register in my mind. But anyways, your dad's telling us this new schedule. He's like, all right, so we're going to have a blue week and then a gray week. And we're like,
What?
you've just complicated our lives that much more. And see, he's trying to, and I will never forget this. Kids in the front row are like hooting and hollering, like, what do you mean there's a new schedule? We're trying to still figure this one out. And like, your dad's trying to like calm the mob down. And he's like, all right, okay. Your dad's a great guy, Ryan. I mean, he's got some thick skin dealing with people from prep, because let's face it, right? You go to an all guys school and people don't get what it's like to go to an all guys school. It's like rules are thrown out the window to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, okay, I can say certain things that I probably couldn't say at other places. And so as a result, like, you got to be ready for a lot of things. Do people still like cut the grass with scissors for Jug?
I
I don't know.
don't think so.
I
The
don't
big
think
thing is,
because a lot of kids are virtual.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, okay. Yeah. That's.
I mean, like freshman and sophomore year, the big thing in Jug, especially around the fall time, was to pick up leaves. That was a big one.
Yeah, that was always a big one. And then in the springtime, I always felt bad for these kids. It would always be like, somebody didn't bring a tie to school. Somebody like, you know, did something stupid or whatever. And they're like out there, hands and knees, like cutting like along like the outer part of the walkway at the quad. And you're just like, oh my God, that looks awful. You always felt so bad for those kids. But yeah, the lot of, I'm starting to like remember all sorts of things from prep. Trying to think of some other things. I know you mentioned Mr. Fenford. Mr. Fenford was my physics teacher, like you said, junior year.
Oh yeah.
That man like opened up a part of my brain that like didn't exist when he's telling me like something is moving when you're not, and vice versa. And I was like, what are you talking about, dude?
Oh yeah.
And he had these quizzes. He had these like, I think it was like daily quizzes or whatever. I think I'm sure Latin teachers still give you daily quizzes, right? Do you guys still have to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was the same thing in Mr. Fenford's class for the most part, at least, like every couple days or whatever. And these quizzes were like the worst. They were, I couldn't even like figure them out. It was just like, how do I get the speed of this traveling at me when I'm at a standstill, but I'm actually moving and that thing's actually not moving? And I was like, okay. But yeah, no, lots of stories at prep. I'm trying to think of like, I mean, see, here was the thing, right? When you got into be an upperclassman, you were always like nervous that you were going to get Dr. Oak's class because it was always known as like a really hard class. Great. He's probably one of the greatest teachers I've ever had. Like, he genuinely is. He's like, he should have gotten into like sports broadcasting or something. He's a great storyteller. And that's another thing you'll find in broadcasting, like storytelling is big. You know, how do you tell somebody a story? How do you paint a picture in their head? And I'll never forget walking in and I remember getting my schedule like, I have Dr. Oak's class. And I was like, oh God. And honestly, if you just sat and just paid attention for like just that one period, that one time, 42 minutes, and you just dialed into the handwriting that he's got, because it's very organized. You actually found that you learned quite a bit. I just always was thrown off by those tests that he had. There's like paragraph long questions, and you're just like, oh my God, you've lost me after like the second sentence there, Doc. Like, what are you talking about here, dude? But yeah, if you just paid attention to his class, you actually did pretty well. But it's good that there's a lot of still the same faces for the most part.
Oh yeah. I've never been fortunate enough to have Dr. X as a teacher, but I mean, I've always seen him like walking around, and I mean, I've gotten to know him pretty well. So he's a great guy. Great guy.
Yeah, he was my advisor last year, and I know exactly what you meant about the stories. He would just go on a story, and next thing you know, a 1:30 like end time for advisory. It's 1:45, and he's still just rolling.
Yeah, he could. If you don't tell him to
Go
stop,
forever.
he'll tell you the whole history book. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like there's a lot of things that I still remember from that class. I'm just like, how do I remember that? The funniest part is when I remember like a random like Latin word. Like I'll never forget the first word you learn is like agricola, like farmer or whatever. That was like the absolute first Latin word. I'm trying to think of some other. You guys take French or Spanish? You guys French or Spanish guys?
Spanish.
Okay.
I took Spanish, and I'm not taking any more of those languages. I was never good at Spanish, so it was weird enough because I was good at Latin. So I took Latin 3, and that went pretty well. But Spanish, I just never got the hang of it.
You went to Latin 3? Oh my God.
I was good at it. But I never
I
never
hated that.
grasped Spanish.
After 2 years for me, Latin wise, I was done.
Same. Yeah, I was good after sophomore year. Mr. Kubik was my teacher. Great teacher. It just was like the reason why I was okay with Latin was because I just aced all those quizzes, and that like saved your grade. And then like I did the homework, but like Mr. Kubik wound up not giving us homework halfway through the year. But the tests, oh my God, that was translating. Colin, I don't know how you do that.
This year we didn't have any tests. Our only test was the final exam. So it was a complete blessing.
For them, yeah.
Just quizzes. Ended up with a really good grade in that.
Wow. Yeah, no, we had like we had tests. I mean, what is it? So A is what, science, and then B is history. C is C Latin?
Oh wait. No, C's Latin.
C's
Latin.
C's Latin.
D is English.
E's English. E's math. F is religion, and
my language.
Is Mr. Bowen still there?
Mr. Bowen.
I think so.
Religion teacher.
I don't think so.
I remember. I've heard the name.
He might be.
Okay, he was a wild character. He was like one of the funnier teachers at prep because he always had this line. Like if somebody wasn't in class that day, he was like, "I wonder where they are." And we're all like, "Oh, we don't know." Mind you, we probably saw them sleeping in the quad or like sleeping in George or whatever. Like, I'm not going to class today. It's like, oh, I get that, man. I totally understand that. And he had this line. He was like, must be in the parking lot smoking a cigarette. And it's like, okay, like, sure. And then this was a really good one. Whenever he had an athlete in his class and somebody was like, hey, like, and he would ask them to meet after class. He's like, well, I have, a workout or whatever. He's like, so you're going to tell me you're going to go pick heavy things up and then just put them right back down for the next hour? And they were like, I mean, yeah, like you've got to do it. And so he was a funny guy. I'm trying to think, Miss Collins, is Miss Collins still there?
I don't think so.
Okay. She was I think that's what her name was. She was like my world religions teacher. Cause I had like Mr. Bowen for like most of religion class. And it turned into like an ethics class towards like my junior year of college or high school. You kind of stopped reading the Bible. But yeah, I remember F day was language and religion, and then G day. Wow, G day was like
quiz on
great.
Quiz.
Right, yeah, it was great. And then you get those quizzes, and you're just like, wow, this is awful. I don't enjoy this. But I mean, I will tell you this. I'm going to tell you this right now. Okay, somebody that's come out on the other side of both high school and college and come out, at least somewhat put together. You're going to feel wildly prepared. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like the whole thing of like, we're preparing you for college. We're preparing you for college. I thought it was just a crock of what. And I was like, all right, whatever. You are 10 steps ahead of everybody else. When you go to college, you're just like, this is easy. I mean, like college was easy. And now, okay, I was like a communications major. So like, I mean, I'm talking to you, right? It wasn't hard for me to do. I wasn't in like finance or whatever. but just managing time, understanding when to work, when not to work, understanding what, prioritization, what to get done first, what to get done last. You guys are 15 steps ahead of everybody else. I'm not kidding you. Georgetown Prep will set you apart from everybody else. It's true. It really is true. And you guys have probably stayed up till like 2 a.m. doing homework, and then you're studying for a test, and you got to get up at 7. You got to do it all over again. That's why, like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my God, like, I wish I had somebody come on a Zoom call. Now, we didn't have Zoom back then, but whatever. And it was like, listen, man, you're going to be all right. You're going to survive. It's going to be all good. Like, you guys will survive. You guys will make it out on the other end. It's going to be annoying. You're going to really hate like your teachers towards the end, but then you're going to look back and like I'm doing right now, like, oh man, that was a great teacher. In the moment, you're like, I hate this. I got to ask you, Ryan, have you ever had an instance where your dad had to like give you a jug?
He gave me a jug my freshman year because I just so happened to get a note from somebody, and it wasn't, I'm not going to say what it was, but the teachers just so happened to I just so happened to have the note, and the teacher found me with the note, and he was like, give me that note, and didn't say the nicest things ever. So I didn't really think much of it. Go to South, and he goes, see me in my office after school. I'm like, oh my God, I already know what this is about. So it's like me, a couple of my friends. It was during music class too, by the way. And then he goes, I don't want you guys to be passing notes ever again. Am I clear? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. He goes, okay, sign here. And I was like, are you kidding me? I got jugged from my own father. And on top of that, I have my soccer game, right, in like 35, 45 minutes. And I'm like, oh boy, how am I going to explain this to my coach? So I get there, have to do like some chores. It's not that big of a deal. Get to the game like 15 minutes late. He goes, where were you? I was like, I jugged. And then the coach was like, are you kidding? And it was
So did that carry over when you got home? Like, was your dad still mad at you when you
Oh
got
no,
home?
my dad was laughing when he got home. I'm like, you really just get, he knew I really shouldn't have gotten jugged, but like it's kind of a bad look if like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
like, I didn't
I
really
get
care. I thought it was funny as well, but I mean, it is what it is.
So do you have to call him Mr. Rodriguez at school, or do you call him Dad?
Usually I just call him Dad, but sometimes I will call him Mr. Rodriguez. Or I'll tell you what though, if I ever called him Chris and people were around, game over. I've thought about that
walking.
Yeah, you'll be running polls for probably the rest of like your senior year. Yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, your dad's a great guy. I mean, like I said, man, he's got to put up with, you hooligans. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Listen, you guys are like, I'm not kidding you. I went to school with some kids that are just like, now everybody always said that my class was fine. It was like the class ahead of me, and I don't want to speak ill on them, but like there were some characters, bro. Like there were some people that you were just like, like what in the world are you doing? I'm trying to think of some characters that. Another name that you guys should actually thought of a couple names. Is Mr. Asher still there as the music teacher?
Yeah.
Okay. So I graduated with this kid, Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah. You guys should get him on. He's a fascinating kid. Fascinating. Very, he'll probably be like a billionaire, when we're like 50 years old. Like he'll be like, everyone's like, oh, like lucid drone technology. It'll be like Andrew Asher because he's so smart. I had him on my show and I just was like, dude, how do you like come up with this? It's a great story with how he came up with his idea. Another name, one of, I think, my favorite people to have ever gone to school with, just an overall phenomenal human being, Andrew Kaskin. He was a year ahead of me, unbelievable football player. Going to senior year, tore his ACL right before senior year, lost a bunch of offers, lost a bunch of, and he was getting looked by like Big Ten schools. I think he had like, somebody told me his junior year of high school, he had like over 120 tackles. So like he was a monster. He was a monster. He was a beast. So then he wound up getting a scholarship to William and Mary. He was incredible there. He was like a 3-time all-conference player there. Mind you, like coming off an ACL injury and everything. He was like, I think they put him at tight end. He just became a beast. And now he's an assistant scout, or actually, I think he got promoted with the Arizona Cardinals. So a very cool guy, a very interesting guy. I mean, if I told, I'll get in contact with you guys when we get off, and I'll give you guys some phone numbers to reach out to, because there's some people that you guys should totally, yeah, 100%. I'll even try and reach in the bag of guests that I've got and help you, because I mean, hey, if I can help you guys along the way, that that it makes me feel a little bit better. Because listen, like I keep saying, I'm a broken record, but I was there one time. I get that. But yeah, Andrew Caskin would be a great one. Andrew Asher would be a good one. Trying to think of some other guys that I've had on that were also really good guys to have. I can't think of any right now, but feel like Ryan, I'm sure your dad probably knows some people with baseball and whatnot, especially. I mean, you should definitely go after Lou Proietti. I mean, he was a coach where, like, he should not have been coaching JV baseball, but he was coaching JV baseball. Like, he just the way his mind worked and how he was like telling us these things, and like, I mean, he was probably one of the best coaches I ever. I mean, your dad was never my coach, but like, I mean, he was one of the best coaches like I ever had, just ever, like in baseball or just at prep in general. He got the game of baseball down pat, and a very interesting guy too. So you should definitely. Well, I'll help you guys out. Don't worry.
Nice. Yeah. We'll definitely try to see. Yeah, definitely. So I guess we should maybe try to wrap it up. Jack, thank you for being on this podcast. It was definitely a lot of fun. Getting to know you more. But I mean, yeah, it was great time. So
Yeah,
plug for a second, or where can people find your podcast?
Yeah, so I'm on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you can get podcasts. Ridin the Pine. Subscribe, like, follow, do all that good jazz. Instagram. I'm on Instagram at riding_the_pine_. Twitter at ridethepine20. The RTP are all capital. Give me a follow. Listen to episodes like these guys have said. I think now I'm on episode like 132. And I've got 133 coming tomorrow, and it just kind of keeps going from there. Started about I think the actual first episode published on April 7th of 2020. So 100. Yeah. So, really?
Yeah. It's the same date.
Love that. That's great, man. Hey, and you know what? I got to give you guys a lot of credit. You guys have been powering through this 70 some episodes while you're going to prep. I mean, I didn't even think I had room to breathe when I was in high school. So you guys being able to do this again, keep doing it. Do not stop. And again, silence the haters. That's my favorite thing in the world, is just to tell people shut up. I don't want to hear it from you. Okay. Just quiet. Just you guys are willing to get on a camera and in front of people and speak. That says a lot. So that, you guys should definitely, again, put that feather in your cap, and it's going to pay off for you big time. So keep going. I'm definitely tuned in. I'm a fan all of a sudden, for sure. You guys ever need anything, I'm a text away. I really would love to help in any way possible. And, I'd love to get back on the show. Love to, we can do some stuff with Riding the Pine, as maybe even football season rolls around, or, whatever. And even if you guys want to give the high school sports lowdown, I miss the DMV sports. I also miss being able to call it the DMV and people not say, oh, you're going to get your license today. No, we call it the MVA. People don't get it. We've got the Maryland Vehicle Association. Everywhere else has got the DMV because we're the DMV. Yeah. But yeah, gentlemen, it's been a blast. Thank you for reaching out. Colin, thanks, man. Ryan, tell your dad I said hello. I'm sure I hope he would not have anything too terrible to say. I was never on his bad side. I never wound up in his office for any bad reason. He just sometimes wanted to chat, and I was like, okay. So, and tell everyone I said hello at prep. A lot of the old faces, a lot of the old people there. And again, to Mr. Butcher, I owe you a personal thank you, because I don't know if I would have walked across that stage if I didn't have him as a teacher, because I was really bad at math. But anyways, gentlemen, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. Love to do this again. Stay safe, stay well, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your summer, for sure. Enjoy the rest of this summer.
Definitely will. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. This has been the Locker Room Podcast. We'll talk to y'all next Saturday with another guest episode, of course. But until then, this has been Colin Visky. We got Ryan Rodriguez. Thank you for joining us so much. This was awesome.
Peace.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.